Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Back to order. First thing, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Adoption of the agenda. A motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Reid.
So move.
All those in favor? Is carried. Thank you. I'm sure everybody had an opportunity to go over our previous minutes. A motion to adopt those. Councillor Wilson.
I'll move to adopt the previous minutes of the last meeting.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Delegations, Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My first delegation tonight is Cochrane Minor Ball. So Cochrane Minor Ball and Administration met in September 2019 to discuss options for a storage solution to their current non-compliant CCANs. 7 potential solutions were discussed, and Cochrane Minor Ball's preference was to enter into a lease agreement with the town for a new storage shed. Following a successful development permit application, the purchase of a compliant 16 by 30 storage shed would be purchased and placed at Mackerel Park adjacent to the newly built batting cages. Cochrane Minor Ball would become a tenant at $5 per square foot, and currently we're discussing a 10-year lease. Representatives from Cochrane Minor Ball are here to express their desire to see this project and its collaborative storage solution move forward. At this time, I'd like to call Jody and Corey to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. My name is Jody Eckert. I am Vice President Softball for Cochrane Minor Ball, and this is Corey O'Howe. He's the President of Cochrane Minor Ball. Cochrane Minor Ball Association offers baseball and softball for boys and girls aged 4 to 18. We also have a Challenger program that allows people with cognitive or physical disabilities the opportunity to play baseball and enjoy all of its benefits. Our program caters to all interested players from first time to advanced to skilled players. We've had some significant growth in the last few years, with the largest jump in 2016 with 42%. We've seen a slight decline over the last couple of years. How did we deal with that significant growth? We did a little bit of fancy footwork. We found some efficiencies in scheduling and usage of the current diamonds. We upgraded the diamonds to accommodate the older players, which was where we were facing some of our capacity crunch, mainly fencing. We also increased the quality of the mackerel fields with irrigation and other amenities like batting cages and scoreboards. We have also increased our capacity by adding to the off-season. Along with the traditional spring season, we now have summer ball, fall and winter training, along with specialized clinics in pitching, back-catching, coaching, and umpiring. And why is our growth slowed? Well, we're at capacity now. Additional diamonds in the future will help us add more kids, but diamonds are a whole other kettle of fish. Tonight we're here to talk about storage. Currently we have 2 CCANs, approximately 10 by 10 by 40 feet long is kind of the burgundy looking one. The other one is a little bit shorter, it's about 20 feet long. Currently they're located behind the Spray Lakes Family Sports Center in the parking lot. What do we store there? Jerseys, back-catching equipment, balls, bats, team bags, balls, batting tees, umpire gear, bases, diamond chalk machines, rakes, pitching machines, and probably other things that we don't know about anymore. We had volunteers build hanging racks and shelves to maximize the floor-to-ceiling space. Managing the equipment takes time, energy, and space, but we do it for safety for both our players and the diamond space, to keep our fees reasonable, ensuring that all have the opportunity to play, and to minimize the barrier to entry to our sport. A bit of history with our storage. From the time that we can remember, Cochrane Minor Ball had a small room in the old skate shack by the Tim Bannister Outdoor Arena. We were let know by the town on July 28th, 2015 that we would need to be out by August 17th, 2015. The building was being demolished and there would be no room for Cochrane Minor Ball storage in the new building. With about 3 weeks' notice, we purchased a sea can, received permissions from Spray Lakes Family Sports Centre to store the sea can next to theirs in the back field. We had volunteers build the racks and the shelves within the sea can to ensure that we could fit all our equipment in. Our second move was a bit more recent. On June 28th, Cochrane Minor Ball was asked to move the sea cans by July 3rd. Finding an appropriate and cost-effective storage solution in 5 days for our sea cans didn't happen with the time limits given. We were given an extension, and Corey continued to work to find solutions that would fit the Cochrane Minor Ball needs and be compliant with town bylaws. On September 17th, Corey and I, along with Reid Bilbin, another board member, met with administration. Mr. Greg Barcy put together a very comprehensive spreadsheet of options, and we discussed each of them at this meeting. Then we took that information away and we shared it with our Cochrane Minor Ball board. We chose the one that met our needs as far as space, location, and costs while meeting the town requirements. We chose the option of the town providing a structure similar to the picture, not quite as fancy, no windows. It's approximately 480 square feet, very close to what we have now. We'll enter a 10-year term lease agreement with the town and located at Mackerel Diamonds, which is a central easy access location for all of our programs. Corey reached out to the Riverside Community Association and they have no initial concern with the project. And anecdotally, the residents have told us they're quite happy to see the use of the area increasing. This does add an additional yearly cost to the program, and these costs will be passed on to the members of our organization. However, we're interested in a long-term, forward-thinking solution, as juggling storage every few years is not efficient use of anyone's time and resources. As the town grows, storage for any sport organization will only become more challenging. We are excited to work with the town on a solution that satisfies the needs of our association members, the town, and accommodates the future overall sport recreation growth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Council, questions, administration, or Cochrane Minor Ball? Councillor Fedeko?
Thank you for the information. I am happy to see something, some dialogue be taking place regarding this issue. We've been on it for a long time. This is probably more a question for administration. Obviously, this storage unit is just going to be used for Cochrane Minor Ball, I take it. Have there been any other concerns from any other sporting groups, maybe looking for storage or anything along that line, just so that we're not ending up down a road where we have 15 groups all of a sudden approaching us for storage solutions? Can you supply any information on that?
Certainly. So through the chair to Councillor Fedeko, we have been approached by rugby, primarily rugby, but I'm expecting that we will be approached by other minor sports associations for storage. Initially, we had thought that Mitford Park was a good location. We could line them up. It's not an ideal location for Cochrane Minor Ball, as they did articulate most of their events or most of their games are held at Mackerel. But long term, the solution that we're looking at is the sports park at Horse Creek Sports Park. So the clubhouse that we're proposing to build there does have storage facilities included in that concept, and that will accommodate. The intention is for it to accommodate all of the minor and organized sports in Cochrane.
And then at that time, could this building be relocated to somewhere else or be used for another purpose at that point?
Through the chair, absolutely. That's why we were opting for a skid shack build. So it'll be constructed off-site and brought in, and the estimated time is anywhere from 30 to 45 days. So it should look just pretty close to what you saw on the screen, and a month to a month and a half.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Had my calculator out and I was doing the math. Is it, maybe this to administration, is it about $2,500 a year then for the lease that we're going into?
Through the chair, Councillor Wilson, $2,400 a year, correct?
$400, okay. Which is great. I'm a supporter of this project. I think we're doing an excellent thing here, and I had the same question Councillor Federico did, which is how does this impact other groups that might have similar requests? And this looks like a pretty good solution to me, and I'm thrilled we found one. So I'm very happy to support the motion before us. Or I guess somebody has to make the motion. So
Someone does.
so I'd go ahead and make that motion I don't have it up in front of me here.
Accept the presentation of information and direct administration to include 35,000 in 2020 capital budget from facility reserve.
Just that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would put that forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
Yes, thank you. I'm very glad to see this solution come forward. I think it's a good fit. Well then, can you remind me or refresh me, what's the size of the space, and is it a big enough space for your needs? Like, are we gonna have to build a new shed again soon?
No, so with the size of the shed, it's about the same size as the 2 C-cans put together right now, approximately, but a lot more efficient than 2 C-cans. So right now, we're kind of getting close to the maximum number of players until we add more facilities. So we feel like this will continue to meet our needs going forward until such time as we get more facilities and that kind of thing, as which time Mr. Murphy talked about storage at the new ball diamonds and that kind of thing. So.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Mr. Murphy, what's the square footage of the shed?
16 by 30.
Sorry, only one.
480 square feet.
Thank you. I just wanted to have a number in my head when we're looking ahead at the Horse Creek Road site requirements. So, anyhow, thank you very much, and thank you so much for your patience in working with us as we got to the right solution, I think.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I appreciate you guys coming forward tonight. I know it's been a bit of a tough road you've had to find a landing spot. Had the opportunity to meet with yourself and Councillor Wilson. I know you guys have been working behind the scenes and administration over the past month, so I'm glad you've been able to find a compromise. Question for you and your group: were you able to, or are you going to sell your C-cans? Will you recapture some of the sunk cost you put into the investment there?
That is our plan, yes, is to hopefully once everything transitions over, then we can put them up for sale and recoup some costs, like you said. The 1 C-can we just purchased this spring, so it's relatively new, so hopefully we'll have no trouble selling them.
Excellent. Okay. So we have a motion on the floor by Councillor Wilson to accept and direct. That was the Reader's Digest version. Any other debate before I call the question? All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thanks for coming forward tonight.
Thank you very much for all your help, everybody, Councillor, Mayor, and town administration. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Corbin.
Mr. Mayor and Council. Hi. I'm here to introduce the Cochrane Tourism Association as a delegation. I have John Thompson, the president, and Joanne Ocherek, the executive director, as well as many of the directors of the board are here as well. They will give an update on the progress of the joint 5-year tourism strategy with economic development, the goals achieved to date, as well as the tourism strategy revision and the goals for 2020 and 2021.
Good evening.
Good evening. Well, I've got some hard acts to follow here tonight. I think I gained a new appreciation of what it takes to develop bylaws and the details that go with it, and
Sorry about that.
how painstaking it can be. Nice presentation. It was quite soothing. Mayor, councillors, administrative staff, members of the press, remaining members of the gallery. Over the years, since 2008, Cochrane Tourism has evolved in various ways. Most recently, we adopted a brand new 5-year strategic plan. This was 2 years ago, 18 months ago, thereabouts. Brand new plan. We developed this plan in close relationship with economic development, which we are working more and more closely with as time goes on. But more about that in a few minutes from Joanne. Cochrane Tourism, like Tourism Calgary and its like organizations across the province and across the country, operates from funding from various sources. Cochrane Tourism gets funding from the town of Cochrane and has for a number of years. Thank you. We also get funding from the Cochrane Destination Marketing Fund and the Canalta Destination West Marketing Fund. These two latter groups, on behalf of the hotels, collect a small amount on each overnight hotel room stay, and that's how funds accumulate, and those are the funds that Cochrane Tourism has access to. You probably know all this that I've told you. One thing you may not know is that participation of hotels in the contributing to the DMF is strictly voluntary. In the last half of 2018, one of our three major hotels changed hands and fell into foreign ownership in a country far, far away. And as much as we tried to convince them to continue to contribute to the DMF, they opted to discontinue contributing to the DMF. So this sort of left a shortfall in our funding, and back to the strategic plan. Strategic plan was all based on certain amounts projected over the next 4 years. So suddenly we got a little bit of a shortfall to deal with here. So on that note, I would ask councillors or council to revisit the original request that we submitted for funding going into budget deliberations. If it's not too late, we would like to ask for that full amount again to help offset the discrepancy created by this occurrence with relation to the DMFs. To present more, may I introduce Joanne Aucharek, who is our Executive Director, tireless, fearless, and committed.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John and Mike, for the introductions. Councillor, Mayor, and administration. So in recent deliberations, I did have the opportunity to listen, and Cochrane Tourism seems to have failed in our job to keep you up to date or in the loop on what we've been doing, partly because it's been head down. We have lots of projects on the go. And so today I just wanted to present some of the things that we were doing and some of the future projects that are in the plans. In 2018, part of the tourism strategy was to develop a brand. That brand was launched after public engagement. We had 93% of the residents say the tourism sector was important to develop. We had a group of working business owners and interested people in business put in 2,400 hours into the process, and the Cochrane Tourism It's the Feeling brand was launched in March of this year. In September, we received the Economic Development Association of Canada Best of Best Marketing Award as showcasing that we are doing things right. The other one of our priorities is to develop content. The content is to showcase the businesses, the organizations, and what is offered here in Cochrane currently. And one of the recommendations that we built for this was on from the public engagement as well, telling us what was a highlight in Cochrane, and so we built content. To date, we've published 40 stories on the businesses, organizations on the tourism website through the tourism or the travel journal, and this was all co-funded through Travel Alberta. We also produced 18 videos to date. I was hoping to show you one of our new ones today. Unfortunately, couldn't figure out how to put it up here. So the videos have been used by administration when a conference and people have come to town. So we are sharing those, and we've had a significant growth increase in our social media channels with the content. And it's working because What's happened now is some of the tour operators are seeing what's here in Cochrane, and they are actually calling us and asking us how we can work together. Part of our tourism strategy is to create tourism products, and so we worked with Economic Development and Mystery Towns, which is a company out of Canmore, to add a pilot project here in Cochrane, where it's an app-based game, and it is an interactive game with businesses in the downtown core. So that was launched in May, actually, and some councillors were there taking part in that game. During the branding expedition, we also took our working group on familiarization tours to some of the tourism assets that were in town to showcase those to the working group so that they could see what the different things they could do in town, because when people talk about Cochrane, sometimes they go, well, I'm not sure what to do here. So Explore Cochrane was a recommendation from our brand working group, and we created a 2-day event where the locals could come and play in their backyard. Our goal for this was twofold. One was to see if itineraries could be created, and the second was to create ambassadors and showcase to the new residents, because our growth has, as you know, has increased substantially in the last 5 years, and so it helped to showcase to them what was here as a tourism products. In June, we had the opportunity to bring Global News to Cochrane. We coordinated it. They approached the town and the farmers market, and so tourism took the lead to bring some exposure to Cochrane by bringing the On the Road show. And it was a great thing, and the businesses in the downtown core have told us that tourism has increased based on our exposure. Another one of our tourism strategies objectives is to provide guidance and resources for the business community. To date, we have held 3 workshops with a total of almost 80 people attending. These are all businesses and organizations looking to expand on tourism products. This experience that you're seeing here was an event that we held in October, and we'd been working with the Stockman's Association to create a new tourism product that builds on their reputation of being the brand archive. That experience was launched at this pilot project, and now we are working to bring a tour to Cochrane from Banff. So visitors from Banff are coming out to Cochrane, and this new tour is part of that, or this new product is part of that tour, and so we will be bringing hopefully some new tourists to town. One of the projects that we're working on, several of the projects that we're working on are large, multi-million-dollar projects. The Bull River is an asset in town, and at the moment, we don't use that asset. And so we have been working with the River Surfing Association, the Whitewater Rafting Association, the several tour operators, and several businesses that are interested in opening in Cochrane. This surf wave is, they have, the company that's building them builds them around the world, and there's currently one in Bend, Oregon that is very similar to what Cochrane could have. We have a feasibility study, that's where we're at. We've been working with this organization for the last year, and they just sent us some new numbers that a wave park in Cochrane could bring $2.3 million a year in economic impact based on the traffic that they have in Bend, Oregon, and the new Calgary project. And so tourism products are things that can be created that not only the community has access to, but we bring tourists here, and that visitor economy is something that we are building on. And so why a tourism sector? These are just some stats from Alberta Tourism. There's 127,000 jobs that are from tourism. 508 million come from that revenue, and last year $8.9 billion was spent in Alberta in tourism expenditures, which was a 5% increase over the year before, and you can see how many people came to visit. So The tourism sector, why the tourism sector? Because, and why do we want to build this? Because as you see from this list, the majority of these are already here. The businesses are ready for business, but they are not market ready. They are not ready to have tourists come to their door. And so our job as Cochrane Tourism is to help them develop those products and bring those tourists to town. At the recent tourism conference in Banff, the Travel Alberta is working on a 10-year tourism strategy, and their goal is to grow from the $8.9 billion to $20 billion in 2030. So tourism is really everyone's business, because not only do people come to Cochrane to visit, when they come here, they do really experience that feeling, and many of them want to stay, and they do end up living here. And the residents here love it here because of what we have to offer. Destination Canada talks about what the visitor economy is, and it is bringing in income or resident expenditures to town. It's a $98 billion annual economic driver. 1 in 10 jobs is tied to tourism. Most of them are small entrepreneurs. And one of the things that people don't know is that in the tough times that we are actually in, tourism can be an economic stabilizer, because countries that have money will come to Canada and spend money here, and that's where our economy continues to grow. It also supports the Indigenous communities and the heritage sites, and that's very prominent here in Cochrane with our Western heritage. And so we realize that you guys have a tough job. I don't want your job in deliberating and asking or allocating funds to organizations that come and talk to you about what they do. What we really want you to understand is that tourism is part of economic impact. We are not looking at small projects. We are looking at large projects based on the joint tourism strategy. There are, our board came up with our priorities. We did a review, as you do, of our strategic plan, and these are our top 7 priorities for 2020. The second 2 are supporting businesses in developing a program to actually walk them through to create tourism products and expand from that business readiness to market readiness for tourists to come to Cochrane. And so I won't talk about that one. The ask was to create a program and match fundings, because we are applying for a grant. To create that program, it's a $130,000 grant or program that we were looking at. Without the town's funding, it'll be $100,000, which is still fine, and we can still move forward with that, but it would be great to be able to expand on that and make that program robust to put the businesses through the program and create the next phase of tourism, which is going to be trip planning and booking for the organizations who are partnering with us, and help them to build their capacity and expand in their business profiles. And just to let you know, tourism is the #1 industry in Australia. So it is big business.
I was expecting.
Thank you. Well, I was going to show you a really great video, but I don't have it. We have a new video where, like we did for the Half Hitch. I'm sure you've seen the Half Hitch video that tourism created in the spring. We are creating 6 more signature videos, and we just finished the one for the rodeo, and you're going to love it.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for your presentation tonight.
So I have 3 things. Sorry. 1, the tourism plan has been updated. Council did receive the tourism plan. In March of 2018, this council endorsed the tourism strategy. Part of that is supporting it through not only knowing what's happening, but also with funding. So I don't know whether I need to ask you to re-endorse this tourism strategy or if it's status quo. The second thing is there was obviously some lack of information about what tourism is doing, and in conversations with Councillor Federico, I suggested that perhaps one of the councillors would like to be on our board so you can be up to date and then bring that information back to council because we are busy. Well, I'm busy.
She said that. She is.
I'm trying to make things happen. And number 3, I guess, is about the funding. And you have some time. I know it's not till December 9th. So those are my 3 things. Thank you.
Fireworks are over now?
I'm
Okay.
good.
All right, thank you. Councillor Federico.
Thank you for the information. I just want to give you kudos to really bringing tourism to the forefront. I think you've done a great job over the last couple of years along with your board. I know you've worked really, really hard to get to this point. A couple of things. You were originally asking for how much money again?
This year, we were asking for $77,500.
And I believe council kind of settled on
60.
Okay.
Correct.
So we're still a little bit off. I do support at least getting you closer to that number, whether it can be exactly that number or not. I'm not really sure on all of the other councillors' thoughts, but I definitely support you getting a lot closer to that. I know that there was some talk about, maybe businesses, paying some sort of tax, and I think that is great long term. But I think without businesses understanding what they're paying for, I think we need to start there. So I think if we could get you a little bit closer to at least be able to roll out some plans and then work on that second phase, I think that's where I would personally like to go. And sometimes when I look at the budget, and I think, we were contributing $50,000 towards Canada Day, which is a one-day event, and then we just seem to fall short on a whole tourism sector that you guys are working on all year. It definitely feels off to me. And I also want to say, we all understand that Cochrane is not, necessarily a place where people are coming to hunker down for a weeks-long vacation, but we are a day trip environment, and our River Wave Park, I don't think screams more better day trips than that right there. So I'm excited to see what you guys are working on, where you're going to take it, and I would, if you are looking for a council rep, I'd love to sit on that board to find out what you guys are up to.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
I will make the motion that we, option 1. I think you guys do a fabulous job. I really appreciate the work you do. I had a couple of questions for you. So your list of priorities, do they actually gel with your objectives?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then I really think the objective of a unique destination is critical to our success in terms of tourism. A couple of things I wanted to reference for you. I know you probably, this is probably a flash in the blinding obvious, but have you got a display at the Calgary International Airport? Have you thought about that? Or is it just simply cost prohibitive?
We did have some marketing that was done at the International Airport in 2017. But with the projects that we're doing at the moment, our marketing budget is pretty slim. And so we feel that based on the tourism strategy that we need to create the products and the collaboration so that we can go back out and tell the world why we're great.
Cool. Yeah, I think some kind of a brochure as part of the display out there might be useful, just watching people at the baggage area waiting for that kind of stuff. So.
Sure. We do have our visitor brochures at the airport.
Okay. Now, the other thing I was going to say is I had the opportunity to live in Prince George, which isn't saying much, but having said that, one of the things one of the things that they did that was really interesting from a tourism perspective is they actually had brochures about tourism Prince George at the airport for people who lived in Prince George to take with them elsewhere. And having had the opportunity to have some of your material, I actually was attending a meeting in Toronto and then one in Winnipeg, and took some material, your material, to those two locations. And it's interesting enough that one piece of material I took to Winnipeg, the family took that material, saw it as an opportunity, came here and visited, and now are planning to move here. So, you know, there is some leverage in terms of being able to have material available for Cochrane residents to take elsewhere, promote the services and the kind of destination, the unique destination that we are. So that, it might be something just in terms of ideas that you might want to consider. Again,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Just to respond to that, yes, people may say that print media and walking away with something in your hands, people may say that's not done anymore, but I believe it is. I believe print media is still alive and well, and yes, many people are using their cell phones and accessing information on their phones. But in terms of the airport, yes, a few years back we did have some display panels at the airport, but that was kind of that period in Cochrane Tourism's lifetime, where we did this and did that and did this and did that. And now with our strategic plan, I find that we are a lot more focused on a specific direction of exactly where we want to go. Whereas, all due respect to what we did over the years, it was a little hit and miss to do a 3-month display at the airport. How do we measure that? What response did we get? Was it a good use of money? Those were all lingering questions after we did that.
again, thank you for the job that you do.
Councillor Nagel?
Thanks for coming here this evening to give us a presentation on your operations. I'm wondering if we did go all the way up to the $75,000 in the budget, what would you guys do with that additional money as opposed to the $61,000, which we've already been talking about in the draft budget?
So we're working on a 2-year project, which are the two priorities. They're the two priorities for our tourism strategy. The first is to create a program. So what we did with the Stockmans was we took them through a process, and the process was to take an idea and then develop it into an actual tourism product that they could market. This is something that Travel Alberta does on an annual basis through their SHIFT program. The SHIFT program moves around to different communities. Cochrane has tried to get the SHIFT program to come to Cochrane to help them create this. It is in Calgary in 2020, so likelihood of it coming here in the next 3 years is minimal because it's going to go to the central Alberta, north, and then come back south. So we've worked with the organization that builds that program to create a program for Cochrane local businesses in the area. So it'll take, the first year would be to develop the program and to do a pilot. From our workshops, we have 8 to 10 businesses that are ready to create products. They don't have the capacity or the resources to walk them through that process. So by doing this, we are actually creating a program where for the next however many years tourism is around, we would have this process to build a full suite of products. And then once we have those, we are able to then, the second thing is to create a visitor itinerary. And that visitor itinerary is putting those products together so they can be marketed as a full day, multi-day adventure here in Cochrane. So that's what the project is for. Originally we had it for $130,000 for the next 2 years. Basically we scaled that down to $100,000 for the next 2 years. This is contingent on a grant that pays 50%. So the destination marketing funds have given us the support to match the program, and the grant unfortunately is due next week. So that's what we would use it for. Whether it comes now or in December, that's where the money would go, is to expand on this project. It will hire contract between 4 people to do the project, and we were hoping to have a full-time position to administer the program, and it's going to probably be half-time based on that.
So the funding would be used to pay someone's salary to develop those programs?
Correct.
Okay. And then what would it mean to your organization if the budget wasn't increased up to 75,000? Would it be the number of hours or the salary of that person?
Basically, yeah, they would be, the program would be just scaled back, and it would be a part-time position through that program. Again, it is contingent on a grant application that we are applying for the program. And even if we don't get the grant money, we will still work on developing tourism products because it is part of our strategy. It wouldn't just be we wouldn't be able to create the program in the same capacity because you need money to do that.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the strategic plan is based on certain numbers per year, and we projected those based on what we were going to be requesting from council. And yeah, we'll just have to slim down or scale back or do less.
Okay.
And that's the impact, that could potentially be felt by the tourism economic community in Cochrane.
And that is one of the reasons why we are looking at different models for funding tourism. And in conversations with the mayor, who brought it up through deliberations, there are funding models that are out there that base on business community, and it's an opportunity for us to perhaps work on a 5-year strategy and have that funded for 5 years so that we can just work, because we have lots of projects in the works. This presentation, I know we were supposed to be there for 10 minutes, but we have several other big projects in the work with the arts community. We worked with Cochrane to development for Cochrane Ranch and the Bike Society for trails. So there's lots of things going on. Just, I don't have time to tell you all of them.
Joanne and our board of directors, who are three of whom are back here, and I forgot to introduce them earlier, we should be focusing on tourism and how to promote Cochrane as a visitor destination. We shouldn't really be spending large portions of our time tracking down funding. We're not a fundraising organization. We need funds in order to operate, yes, and we want to have a more secure funding model to work under, instead of, are we going to get the money this year? Are we going to get this? Are we going to get that?
Okay, I think we understand.
Thank you.
This will not come as a shocker. You just referenced my rant in the budget deliberations. Spoke at length about the need for tourism and proposed different funding model, and Councillor Padeco has suggested that that's going to take some time and won't be something we can address in the short term here. And you just pointed out exactly what I was about to say as well, is that tourism has turned into a fundraising initiative rather than a tourism initiative. I, for one, would like to see the funds that we've already set aside in the budget be utilized to the maximum of promoting Cochrane. I'm wondering if perhaps, and you're asking us to go and revisit the budget, which gave me goosebumps and not in a good way.
I do understand.
I'm wondering if we were to allocate $17,000 from an operating reserve and not have a tax impact, if that would be an option to council. Mr. Devanna, is that something somebody could put in the form of a motion if that's what they wanted to do tonight, since I would have to vacate the chair to do so?
Well, I think that, tourism, I think they've made a lot of progress in the last 2 years at least that I've been here. And product development is the number one thing that I think I talked to Joanne the very first time I ever spoke to her, is the important product that we need to have things for people to do, and the only way to do those is to develop the products with the people that, the tourism organizations. We do have operating reserves that we could allocate. So, I think we're at 60,000 right now, and if we want to go to 77,000, so that, which would, if we allocate the 17,000 from an operating reserve, would give us time to develop a long-term strategy for tourism and also allow them to keep their momentum going. And so I would be supportive of doing that.
So we do have the option to do that?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Okay, that would be an amendment to a motion. If someone would like to put their light on to do so.
So the motion would be direct administration to put $17,000 into the budget for 2020 and take the funding from the operating reserve.
Councillor Federico, is that where you were going?
Absolutely. I would make that motion to take $17,000 from an operating reserve within the town of Cochrane that would be used to help get you closer to where you want to be to make sure tourism stays alive and well here in Cochrane. Anything else I need to add?
Councillor Nagel?
Yeah, I have a question for administration. It sounds like, would it be correct to say all of the money we'd be giving you guys, or at least the majority of the money we're giving you, if we do this, is to pay for salaries and wages?
This $17,000 would go towards this project development, which would be for salaries, correct?
So then my question for administration is it really advisable for us to be funding salaries for what's essentially an economic development operation while also cutting municipal economic development budgets? Like, how come this isn't something we're doing in our economic development department, but instead we're choosing to give money to a third-party organization? What's the logic there?
Much bigger question. Our economic development strategy specifically talks about us partnering with Cochrane Tourism. So they're the tourism arm, and then we're the economic development arm. Like, if council wanted to go down a different road where you wanted to become involved with tourism, we would have to work out how that relationship may evolve. Related to the 17,000, whether it's wages, what I'm hearing is that they want to leverage our money to get a grant to develop programs that will lead to greater tourism and economic opportunities. So I think that's something that we would want to consider. But the broader question about whether tourism should be in-house, that's a way bigger conversation and something we have to work out with these folks for sure.
Okay, so, and to clarify the motion on the floor currently, it's to fund the $17,000 shortfall through operating reserves?
That's correct.
Not impact the tax
Okay,
decrease.
thanks.
Councillor Reid?
Which is just to give us time to develop a broader strategy to fund tourism.
That maybe answer my question, and then this would not have effect on the following 2 years in terms of our 3-year budget, right? This would be a one-time allocation for this year until such time as the
Yeah, it would
strategy.
still be 77, then 60, and 60.
Okay, yep, I can support the motion then.
Councillor Wilson?
I appreciate all the questions that were just asked. They just answered most of mine. Councillor Federico, I really appreciated the volunteer to join the board if that is the way we're going. That's what I just heard. Just a question about when that might happen, just as...
Well, they meet every night of every week.
Perfect. So I'm glad we have our representative already. I was just curious about that. I think it's would be useful, as Joanne pointed out, that there's perhaps been a knowledge gap between what's happening there and what we're seeing here. So I really appreciate the a possible pipeline to bridge that gap and hear more about what's going on there. So I thought it was a great idea. And we can
Thank
hear
you.
more about it.
So our next meeting is it's there the December 17th. You're welcome to come. We meet once a month.
Just for clarity, we would have to change our organizational meeting. There's a whole procedure
Oh, see.
and some bylaws that we would have
I
to
see.
reconstruct. Yeah.
I guess.
It's just not as
I'm
easy.
I'm
The bylaw guy.
We just can't show up places. Although I think we could just go and, yeah.
I'm also in support of the current motion. And thanks for your time.
Okay, no more lights are on. Everybody's clear on the motion. It was except for information and direct administration to allocate $17,000 from operating reserve to top up to 60 to 77. In 2020 only, yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's carried. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you're doing for Cochrane Tourism and
Thank you.
business.
Thank you, councillors.
You guys want to take a 2-minute break? Carry on? I can't hear you. Yes? Okay. 2-minute break so I can go pronounce your last name a couple of times before you come up
Perfect,
again.
sounds great. It's essentially just the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm good.
Okay, we're back in session. Before I give the floor to Ms. Anna Carrico, Councillor Reid, you were not in attendance at the public hearing, so you procedurally cannot be present for the debate. We'll come and get you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Tonight I am before you to present Bylaw 2019 for consideration of second and third reading. This bylaw is a land use bylaw amendment to redesignate the newly annexed lands in Sunset Ridge. So this is a map showing the community of Sunset Ridge with the subject parcel highlighted in yellow, which is just north of Sunset Stage 3. The 40-acre parcel was recently annexed from Rocky View County this past summer. The subject parcel currently has a Rocky View County land use designation of Ranch and Farm District, which is based on their land use bylaw. This bylaw is proposing to redesignate the subject parcel to Residential Urban Reserve in order to bring the parcel into compliance with the Town of Cochrane land use bylaw. This is the Residential Urban Reserve District from the Town of Cochrane bylaw. This land use designation will allow for the continuation of the current uses on the parcel until further development of the land occurs, at which time the land will need to be planned through an area structure plan and neighborhood plan process. As this amendment will ensure that the subject parcel is in conformance with Cochrane's land use bylaw, administration is recommending that council give second and third readings to Bylaw 2019. That concludes my presentation. I will welcome any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. Councillor Nagel.
Thank you for your efficient presentation this evening. I will move the council give second reading to Bylaw 2019. And I have no comment.
Okay. Anyone further? No? I'll call the question. All those in favor of second reading? Opposed? Seeing none. It carries. Now carry on the third.
I shall also move that we give third reading to Bylaw 2019.
All those in favor of third reading? It's carried. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out, watching the proceedings.
Happy to be here.
Okay, we'll just grab Councillor Reid and move to item 6A. We don't mess around here. We're Ms. Knight, take us away.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Before you tonight to present the elected officials' remuneration and expense reimbursement policy for your consideration. At the November 12th meeting, council heard from the mayor and council remuneration task force, who presented their recommendation for council's consideration. Further to council's request for revisions, I have brought forward the revised policy this evening, but thought it would be helpful to review the major changes this policy is proposing. The significant ones were the payment of per diems, councillor salary as a percentage of mayor's salary, with a delayed implementation of October 2021, and a change of the selection of the comparable communities from 10 down to 5. Policy itself was completely rewritten with an eye toward keeping it simple. During the task force presentation last week, they highlighted these suggested changes, and these changes actually are becoming more common practice, especially the percentage of mayor's salary for council's remuneration. There were some questions last meeting regarding what the per diems would and would not include as allowable expenses. Task force has determined that this policy should include lists for both allowed and disallowed events and meetings, and I have highlighted those for council's consideration. And finally, council had requested the review and revision function of a policy function become a policy of administration, and therefore changes to that policy include that provision as outlined. So generally, the per diems, when we speak of those, they would be for board and committee meetings and meetings of commissions, which board members or council members were appointed, and for which no other per diem is paid. Approved professional development, excluding AUMA and FCM, business meetings with other councils, other government agencies, and anything else at the discretion of the mayor. Per diems that will not be paid for attendance at the list that you see on the screen. Again, per diems, the way they are set out in the policy itself is that anything under 2 hours would not receive a per diem, and the mayor is only paid per diems for work on weekends, given his position is full-time and council's is part-time. In regards to the changes in the draft policy for the revision of the compensation, it would be done at the midterm of any new council where the mayor's salary is within a 5% differential of other mayors from the comparable communities. Automatic adjustments would be made at the next budget cycle. COLA would continue to be paid to council and mayor as the Calgary CPI number of July of the year before budget. The 3 recommendations before you tonight are that council adopt this new policy with the payments for the per diems and the increased salary coming into effect after the next general municipal election. The council rescind the previous policy. There was a typo in the report you have before you. It should say 110510 as opposed to 1105.9. And that council amends Schedule C of the Town of Cochrane Procedural Bylaw by rescinding the terms of reference for the Mayor and Council Remuneration Task Force, as the changes that are proposed in this policy make the task force redundant, and their mandate would have come to a close should we put the revision being done by administration at this point. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you for your presentation and the hard work of the committee. Actually, I'm going to move option 2. That council not adopt this elected officials remuneration and expense policy. And the direction that I would suggest is that the terms of reference of that there be. I'm trying to get to the point where we wouldn't have this this situation again, where it would be a public committee, but rather that it would be administration. So
that's option 1.
Well, I don't want to do the policy or as presented, and I don't want to do the per diem. So I'm really looking at option 2 with an amendment to suggest that there not be a public task force. So does that make sense?
If I can just direct, the policy as proposed, the revised policy, removes the requirement for a mayor and council remuneration task force. So this policy before you for adoption has administration leading the review and revision of council remuneration exclusively. There would no longer be a mayor and council remuneration task force within your procedural bylaw either.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get at
is some amendments to the policy in addition to that.
Right. So what I'm trying to do is leave the policy as it was, but with that one change, that there would be that terms of reference for the mayor and council remuneration task force would not exist. I don't support the per diem. I don't support the increases. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is for the next council.
Right.
Starting in 2021.
Correct.
With a increase to, okay, you're good with that?
Yep.
So you're moving.
Option 2.
Okay. Which I'm not clear on. Council and not adopt the elected officials reimbursements.
Right.
So I think what you're actually asking for is that we adopt it with amendments.
So option 2 suggests that that I don't adopt that, and that I provide administration with further direction, and the further direction would be.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
All
what I
right.
was trying to achieve.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't clear.
Okay. Is everybody clear on what Councillor Reid? No, I'm seeing some, so I'll just try to summarize. You like the direction, you don't want a pay increase for the next council, and you don't want per diems. So you want to defeat it altogether, and then do what with it?
And do away with the mayor remuneration task force. Refer that to administration.
Okay.
So if you defeat this, then the current policy will be the standing policy.
Yeah.
The standing policy has the task force in it. Right? So
That's where I'm getting, we're asking for two things.
if you were to approve the function to review salaries and then just automatically update them if you're inside or outside of 5%.
So I could create my own new motion.
Yes. But going,
I think we know what we're, yeah, I think, yeah, so we'll, all right, if you want to
I'll make that
attempt at a
motion.
motion?
then. Yeah,
Okay.
so my motion would be that we retain the current policy in terms of the elected officials' remuneration and expense policy, but that the task force on the mayor and council remuneration task force be eliminated and it be referred to administration,
Okay.
or something to that extent.
Okay. I think we got it.
Sorry, that was
No.
clear.
Councillor Padeco.
I just have one question, and maybe you can help me answer this. When it comes to per diems and sitting on council committees such as CPC or Family and Community Support Services Advisory Board, how do other communities work it when you have a board of, 5 volunteers and a couple of council representatives? That's where I think that personally for myself, I would not feel comfortable taking a per diem when my rest of the board members are volunteers from the community. I think it's very different on some boards where it's only a council representative being there and they're gone for a good chunk of time. But I think that as a person sitting on a committee and representing council, but there's also volunteers, I feel uncomfortable with doing that personally, but that would be my tweet question, and I don't know what other communities do.
Through the mayor to Councillor Fadeco. So 4 out of the 5 comparable communities that were used as part of the revised policy do pay council members a per diem to go to those meetings. Some of that was due to feeling that council, although are part-time, sometimes are working next to full-time hours when they take in council meetings, budget meetings, special meetings, and then these additional policy or other meetings that they go to for the council committees. And so that was a way of also compensating councillors who are working extra hard and who are attending 2 or 3 or on 2 or 3 different committees to make sure that they're compensated fairly. There are some committees like ARB that currently council doesn't sit on, but they are compensated, and there is leaning more towards SDAB being compensated as well for our public at large members. There are a lot of communities that are doing that. But it is a means of just giving council that remuneration to allow them to continue to do that work.
And I totally understand that. I think that, you're right. If community members at large were also getting some sort of benefit, then I would probably be in a more agreeance for it. But my fear is that you're going to have councillors step forward to sit on committees because it's additional money for a paycheck and not be there for the right reason. So personally, I wouldn't support that portion of it. I think that as council, we all sit back and we look at our own schedules and we agree to be on committees for XYZ, and I think that I would rather keep it that way. And maybe it just needs to be the hours tweak then. I mean, maybe take out maybe you have to just bump back that time so that if you're on a meeting for more than 4 hours, which likely probably wouldn't happen very often, then maybe I'd feel more comfortable. But I think sitting there with volunteers, I would feel pretty bad taking money that they aren't getting anything for. That's just my opinion.
Okay, just a reminder, if you want changes, this is where we're supposed to do it. So, Councillor Nagel?
I'd just like to speak to the overall agenda item, and I'm not entirely sure where we're at on the motion, but I don't support the raise, I don't support the per diems, but I do want to say I do think the job is worth nearly $42,000. Like it is a very important position. It has definitely increased in workload in the 6 years that I've been here. And it's also not just the time that we spend in meetings or sitting here, it's also the mental space that it occupies. I don't know about you guys, but when we're making big decisions, it takes weeks of mental space for me. I go on vacation, sometimes I just sit around and talk about, political things and what, yeah, I know you guys, how much I love you. But the thing is, while I think the job is worth that, I think we live in the economic climate right now where there are lots of people who aren't getting paid what they're worth. And it started in the private sector with businesses, started in the oil patch, and now it's trickling into the public sector, and you have nurses and teachers and civil servants. Everybody is now getting to the point where they are not getting paid what they once were getting paid or what they are still worth today. And I think it would be not right for council to be getting this big pay increase, while I think the job does deserve it, at a time when other people aren't getting such a pay increase. So speaking procedurally, again, I'm not entirely sure where our motion's at, but I think I know where Councillor Reid wants to go, and maybe we should adopt the policy, but scratch the entire section relating to per diems, and then change the number in section 1II from the 41,832 to just match whatever our salary is right now. It's like 31.5 or something like that. I actually don't even know what we make exactly.
So, okay, I know where you're going.
Yeah, that wasn't an official amendment. That was a recommendation.
That's where your head's at.
Yeah.
And you know it's for the next council, not this council's raise.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Flowers.
I don't support this motion as it's put forward because I believe a lot of research has gone into this. We had a committee that's looked into it and realized that we're way behind and have been for several years. And I think it's our business, or we should be putting this forward for the next council and have it in place so that we attract people that are right for the job and that they are paid fairly for what the work that they're doing.
Councillor Wilson?
I'm sitting here undecided because I'm hearing good thoughts both ways. I know that in the community there's a bit of a perception right now that council has recently voted themselves a raise, is something I've heard over and over again recently, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know where that comes from, because even with this consideration, at no point was this current council considered for a raise. This is for the next council, so I'm glad we're bringing that point up. The one piece actually that I really don't have a mind on right now, and I'd like to hear if somebody could give me a reason for it. Why are we dissolving our remuneration committee and bringing that in-house? I haven't heard a good argument for that, and I see value in having that committee separate, but I could be won over, so I was hoping somebody that's of that mind could, administration or anybody, why we're making that change?
Well, we direct administration to come back with that.
Okay.
But Councillor McFadden, do you want to speak to that, or do you, I can? Okay. Okay. Just on the task force, I don't want to undervalue a public body. My argument is we spend hours talking about our own salaries every single term. It doesn't matter who's sitting here. We spend more time on 0.01% of our budget than we do on the other 99.9-ish. But my thought was make it administrative. Administration goes back, this is the policy, they follow, it's a council policy. We can change it at any time. We can even visit it in budget and say, no, this is not a good economic climate, we're not going to take the wage, just like we would do with any other town staff wage. I'd just like it to be not an issue anymore and just have it go away and come back, just like anything else. That was my entire thought process on this. Take it away from councils getting a raise all the time.
Sure. Sure. And I can appreciate that. So you won me over right there on that. So I'm on board with that. I think I'm going to differentiate from councillors left and right of me that I often vote with on things like this and say that this is not a pay raise for us. This is a pay raise for the next council. I'm going to support it as it currently sits with the expectation that it would be an election issue next election. And if that next council feels that taking that raise is a bad idea, they can sit right where we are and take it away from themselves. And if I'm on the next council, that very well be something that I do. But I think it's been pointed out that with the amount of workload that we have, being comparable to similar communities is something that I think I'm fine with, not myself doing right now, but the next council being in place with. And finally, with the per diems, I am in agreement. I would be uncomfortable sitting next to volunteers on committee boards knowing that I'm making a per diem and they're volunteering their time as a committee member, and I would likely be against the per diem portion too. So I guess that puts me in a different camp than we've talked about so far. Pro salary, anti per diem, and I'm with bringing it in-house. So there's my 2 cents, and I'll try and vote accordingly.
Okay. Councillor McFadden, bring us home.
Doubt it. So the way I've looked at this, and certainly I've certainly seen the role grow and change over the years, and even within this council, we added the extra strategic planning session, so the number of required meetings, it's an extra Monday a month that we've committed ourselves to. And so I think we're always doing ourselves a disfavor when we talk about it as saying it's a pay raise for the next council, because it's more work and it should be remunerated that way, is how I've always looked at it. The workload has increased dramatically. I never judge my commitment level by what I get paid. There's work that needs to be done, and so I step up to do it. But that's probably not a fair way to set the world for the next council. The workload has increased, the population that we're servicing has increased, the complexity of the issues that we're facing has increased, and the expectations from the public has increased. And so while it's a part-time pay job, I don't think you could ever do it if you're not doing it full-time, because you're never not a councillor. If you wander into Safeway to buy something, you're a councillor there. If I stop by my kids' activities, I'm still a councillor. So it's you can't compare it to anything else. There's not an apple-to-apple comparison in this. It's a different type of role that we take on in public service, in the political role. So I agree with the setting it as a percentage of the mayor's role and setting that as a comparable, so we kind of take the politics out of it and just deal with fair numbers. So I support that portion of it. I also support the per diem portion of it. And I think of the extra work that different councillors have taken on, even in just this council. When we had the transit task force, there were 2 councillors that were meeting 2 times a month, if not more. We were making those meetings, and those were coming out of my ability. You know, we all had to take either vacation time or work time or sacrifices out of everything else to do that. When Councillor Flowers led the Tri-Site task force, that was 6 months of work, I think, that you chaired. It's a lot of extra work stepping up. And I certainly don't do it for any remuneration, but because I think it's the right thing to do. The Rec Board Committee, so that's 2 hours a month extra, and then, but I also help draft that as well. So there's meeting prep, and there's the management of those meetings that go into that. So the role has changed a lot from when I was first elected, I think, even when Morgan was first elected. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture and not just at today's environment. And this is a decision for the next council to make sure that they're going to be in the right place to make sure they step up and serve in these positions and don't say, I can't afford to do that because I'm out of vacation time, whatever other personal sacrifices people do, step up to do this job. So I actually support the recommended action, the policy as it is. I think it sets up a fair playing field for the next council. I know it's not the politically popular thing to say right now, but I've seen time and time again the councils of the day make that decision at the cost of future councils being treated fairly. And there's really only one time in a term that we get to deal with this, and whether the political timing is right, you only get to deal with it once. So if whatever decision we make is going to be in place for the next 6 years probably. So I think we need to think beyond today and be strategic not only in how we're running our organization, but in how we're trying to draft and draw the responsibilities of future councils. Because we're dealing with the City of Calgary as equal partners, Rocky View County as equal partners, and other municipalities as equal partners. So I think I'm in support of it. I think it's treating Cochrane like the mature government that we're expected to be.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I recognize that it is for the next council, but I suspect that most of the members of council will be running again, and so this would directly apply to them. I'm wondering if it might be easier to break this up into 3 separate motions. One would be the councillor salary increase, one would be the per diem, and one would be the elimination of the task force. And I'm just putting that out there as an idea as opposed to just kind of omnibus motion right now.
Okay.
So,
well, we could split it into 3. That's
is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One is the
councillor's salary increase. The second would be the per diem. issue, and the third would be the elimination of the task force.
If I could, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
members of
please.
council, I would like to know which policy you're referring to. So if we're looking at the existing policy, the 110510, there are significant changes that need to occur to that policy to have it to remain in effect. That still speaks to the non-accountable costs, which were the tax-exempt portions of council salary that were removed at the beginning of this year. So the policy was not revised at that time because we knew we were going to be bringing a task force into play.
Right.
So
What if we called number 1 the current policy or new policy instead?
Say again?
So revisions could be made to the proposed policy, which is 110801, that could deal with the per diems and deal with the council and mayor salary, and remove those while adopting the policy, because the policy already speaks to the removal of the mayor and council remuneration task force that brings the review of council salary into administration's responsibilities. If council is thinking they want to keep the existing policy, then we need to go back and do a more fulsome review of that, because we started with the task force with a brand new draft, because the policy we had was very clunky and very confusing and had some things in it that were not required any longer. If you want to start with that existing policy, then we need to go back and redraft that policy as well.
So, okay, Mr. Devanna, you're going to help me?
Help us, please.
I think the task force did an excellent job on the new policy. It's a much improved policy overall. So I would recommend that you consider the new policy, and I do agree the best way to deal with it is to ask the 3 questions. And, do you want to provide council salary at 45,852 in 2021? Find out if the answer is yes or no, and then we will. And then on the per diem, you'd have to remove section A4 and the per diem section in the appendix. Find out what the position is of council on that, and we will comply. And then the third question is already removed, but there was some talk about whether you wanted to put it back in. So I think you should ask that question as well. But the old policy is really unworkable at this point.
You clear with that? No? No, so I think I got it here. So adopt the policy as presented.
Actually, I would go in reverse order. I would amend the policy, taking out the pieces you want, and then adopt the final policy as amended. You need to amend the policy first before you adopt it if you're taking out per diems and wanting to revise the council salary.
Let's vote on per diem first. Because the task force is already being removed by the policy. So if you want the task force out, we're going to get there. So everybody's clear on per diems? Okay. I haven't even spoken to this yet, which may be where we're trying to get away from. Per diems. So per diems, you want them removed? That's the motion you're making. Okay. Any other discussion on per diems? No? All those in favor of removing per diems from the policy? Those opposed? So it's 4-3, it's removed. So per diems are removed. Now we're going to go to council salary inside the policy. You're moving to have it stay the same as now, which is what you said as well. Okay? So all those in favor of the...
One moment. I would suggest that you have it as of 2021. Council salaries as of 2021. If you set it at the date at today's, it will be different when this policy gets revised.
Right. Okay. Understood? So council... Okay. So you're amending so you're making a motion to remove or to amend the policy to have the council salary as of 2021 instead of the proposed 41,832. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That's defeated. So I'm seeing the numbers stay the same. 41,832 with per diems removed.
Correct.
So that's what we're talking about now. Everyone's clear on that? Now we would vote on the motion to have the policy adopted as amended. With a 41.8 salary starting in 2021 and removing the per diem section.
Correct.
Any debate on that? Okay, all those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That's carried. Easy for you to say. Okay.
I still need motions to rescind the previous policy, as well as to remove the Mayor and Council Remuneration Task Force from the procedural bylaw.
So happy you're there to direct us through this. So we've dealt with motion 1.
Correct.
We're now moving to rescind policy 110510.
Correct.
A motion for that. Councillor Reid, rescinding policy 110510, council remuneration package. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Now we're amending Schedule C.
Correct.
Okay, the last one on the, any takers? Just a recap of what that means.
That means the Mayor and Council Remuneration Task Force will no longer exist.
Councillor Nagel?
I'll make that motion, and the reason that I personally support this is I always feel like I totally waste those people's time. They take it very serious because they recognize the gravity of the situation. They understand the political implications of what they're recommending, and it's their opportunity to really get involved in politics. And some people feel very passionately about politician pay one way or the other. And every time they come here, I just end up voting against whatever they've recommended. And it's like, why did they even do that work? You know, so
thank you.
So that's why I'm supporting it. Yeah, yeah. Starting with former non-mayor Jeff Chung's recommendations, but yeah, sorry.
No. We're gonna pull the scab off again there. That's good. Okay, so that's your motion. Anybody want to talk further about this? I don't either. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight, and please thank the task force for their work. Whew. Okay. Seven A.
Am I controlling? Okay. Just bear with me for a moment here.
What? Right.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present to you the third quarter financial results for 2019. Thought we'd try a little different format. Of course, I'm here to present two reports, the operations reports as of September 30th, 2019, as well as the capital status. As we walk through this report, a few things to highlight. Administration is projecting a operational surplus of $750